Good morning from Europe to all, and good evening. And it's wonderful to be here in this global community. I'm very aware of time, so I also have my stopwatch with me next to me, so I will use that. So also to be accessible and respecting time is an essential thing. Do I have also yes, I can share my screen, fantastic. Okay, cool. Then I will share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Can you see it? Yes. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. So now I start the stopwatch. So it's 8:10 in my time, and now let's start. So welcome again. My name is Agnes Sarolta Fazekas. I am coming from Budapest, from Hungary, and I'm working at the Eötvös Loránd University as an assistant professor. And I had the honor to work with several European organizations, and also not in the higher education field, but also in the youth field. I provided my contact details. Please give me a contact if you want later on. So how I would like to structure this brief 15 minutes. I was in contact with Réka, so we discussed that it would be really essential for you to have practical information. So I collected a structure on a short overview about Europe, and then focusing on the practical aspects of higher education. I also brought an additional +1 good practice, and I just want to highlight a few things for the future of higher education in Europe and also in globally. And I provided a lot of resources, networks, and further readings for you. I also want to highlight that who is in the room is the starting point. And I also wanted to learn about who are my audience. And Réka was so kind to share with some things with me, that what are your profiles in the audience. So let's start who is in the room. And this exercise is an amazing exercise as well in both non-formal and formal education, when we have that who is in the room, what are the hopes, fears, and expectations. What I gathered is that you are coming from all kinds of fields of areas of higher education, from leadership and management, from student support, from the teaching and learning environment, from internationalization, from marketing, from research, and so on and so on. And I created on the right-hand side of the document a little bit of visual explanation, which is a lot of squares next to each other. And I was also putting in the heart of this document a heart, and I wrote mainstreaming inclusion and diversity in all areas of higher education. So I also put here the different thematic areas, such as teaching and learning, professional development, student support, and so on. And what I would like to provide you here is that inclusion and diversity should be interwoven in all kinds of areas. So not as a separate entity or not as a separate division, but really interwoven the whole aspects. Please let me know if there is any technical barriers. I saw some chat pop up, but I hope that the technical things are good. So let's go for the brief overview in Europe. I just recently provided a podcast on my understanding of Europe in terms of policies and practices.
Agnes, Agnes, can you hear me? I don't think your slides
Yes.
are moving forward. Your slides, are they moving them forward or not? They seem to be on the same first slide. Is that okay, or are you meant to move them forward?
For me, yes, it's moving forward.
They're not moving forward for us. They're saying they're not moving forward.
Now is it better?
No, maybe you can. On the first slide.
Yeah. And still not in presentation mode. Could that be a problem?
Let's stop sharing. We don't worry. It's a good exercise for accessibility. Let's start sharing again. And let's see if I can participants can see my presentation. Do you see my presentation?
We just see the first slide. We don't. It's not moving. It's not moving forward in presentation mode. You just got the opening
and if
slide.
I make it in a small window, like
Yeah,
this,
we're not. It's moving forward. We're not seeing the full slide, but we are on slide 4 now. Yeah.
Okay, then I make it a little
Guess it's better than nothing.
bigger. Yeah. I zoom it, and then
I guess that's better. Yeah, but you can't see the words now. But yeah, that's better. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. And I just put here the yes, perfect. Okay, so these are the challenges that might come up in terms of access and inclusion as well. So when we think about Europe, I also highlighted that in Europe, the social agenda, the social inclusion agenda has been improving not only in the education sector, but all areas of the European Union. And I also highlighted here with the visual explanation that the road ahead of us is a long road for inclusion. And I also provided another funny picture on the right-hand side, which is inclusion and diversity more than buzzwords. We also see many times that these are written in policy papers, etc., but we need to have a meaningful understanding and implementation for it. And if you look at the World Conference on Higher Education globally, you can also see that the new demands for the 21st century are that the diverse student base is getting more and more diverse, and also the student numbers are increasing. So it's a new demand that we reshape our understanding, and we see inclusion as a default, and we try to find what are the barriers in the teaching and learning environment rather than questioning the individuals. So thinking as inclusion or as diversity as a default. I also want to highlight now that I'm thinking about inclusion and diversity on a holistic level, as individuals have different life experiences, different access needs, and also many of our experiences coming together as well. So I also working on the intersectional approach as well. And it is also needed to understand that groups are not in separate ways, that I don't know, people with disabilities, we all have different identities and it comes together. So the challenges for higher education is to have to meet these new demands. And I would love to continue with the next slide. Hopefully it comes. And now we slowly going into the practices. So as on the first picture you saw, we are coming from all kinds of areas of higher education. So I included some of the good practices for you. Some of you highlighted strategy and policies and mission and vision of higher education. So I highlight here that diversity and inclusion should be in the heart of the decision-making processes and from the early on. So not fixing the system afterwards, but really focusing from the 0 point of design, understanding and implementation. So when you are having your strategy meetings at the governance structures of universities, please include also equality divisions, but also people with lived experiences, students in these processes. And then you can start with a really holistic approach. And also you can apply the nothing about us without us principle. And I provided for all these different aspects, readings and further things that you can read. These are all in English, so it's accessible for you. So it's not in Hungarian. So the next point on the number 2 is internationalization. I have the honor working with the AIE, which stands for the European Association for for international education. And we also learned about the last 7 years that we need to make sure that we reach out to underrepresented groups to make international exchange program for all. And we also highlighted that what are the issues when it comes to this. And it might be a very simple idea, but just meeting the colleagues, like international relations offices are knocking on the door of equality divisions. So it's like really making connections. And of course, we need to be aware of our home and host institutions and create networks with them. And there are also some aspects of member countries, especially in the European Union, that how we can make sure that there is a smooth mobility between member states, and as well how we manage the social aspects as well. So it's a lot of country-specific things, but the most important that you create, really create connections. The next one is still a little bit comes to governance and leadership. And I also highlighted here because sometimes we face that our governance structures or our different bodies are not diverse as possible. So what I experienced in AIEA, that it's a lot of mentorship is needed to really empowering younger colleagues or colleagues from underrepresented groups to take into leadership positions, and really supporting this whole process. And I'm very happy to see that when I get into the AIEA, my first action was as a chair of the Access and Diversity Community to start my, process after I step out from this role. And now I'm very happy that one of our colleagues is a wheelchair user as an academic coming from also from countries that are not well represented in the AIEA networks, and also a female, also a human rights advocate. So all these things are important, and again, a meaningful participation. So it's not that we make somebody just to be on the position, but really having a, let's say, a badass, but a very smart, a very fierce person in these roles. The next slide, let's go to number 6. Yes, so the next slide is number 4, which is, sorry, I'm just going up a little bit, the teaching and learning environment. And I'm happy to tell that I'm working on the universal design approach of teaching and learning. And it's important that we design from the beginning to the greatest extent of people. Student support, again, it's the equality divisions home, but it's again needs to be a needs assessment that not only for target groups, but also with the holistic approach, because we all have needs, not only specific target groups. Digital inclusion, like as we experience right now, a lot of access issues can happen, but again, when you are having the procurement systems, for example, it's also important. So that when you purchase a product, you purchase a Zoom, you purchase that you think about that what is your or who is your audience. Number 7 is about creating dialogue and raising awareness. It's a lot about staff development, encouraging staff at universities, and understanding that inclusion is everyone's business. So it's again not in silo. Professional development is sometimes people think that inclusion and diversity trainings are separate from teaching and learning professional developments. I say no. It should be interwoven in any kind of professional development. And last but not least, number 9 is money, 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 money. It's important to have these aspects. And last but not least, co-creation with the individuals, that the nothing about us without us principles is working. So let's go to the very practical aspects, which is the CharmEU, which is one of the European university initiatives. I'm very honored to be the work package leader on inclusiveness. And this is a new structure, a new innovative university structures across Europe. There are other European other alliances. So I really welcome you to contact us later on. But these are, again, a new innovative ways how we think about our structures. So what is the way forward? I say that we are still working many times in separate structures, but we should open up these professional doors to each other and hand in hand work towards a more inclusive and diverse higher education. I also understand that many times we are still fixing the environment a little bit later and not starting with the inclusive design from the 0 point. So my understanding, and I also wrote in my doctoral thesis, that for a while, for a medium run, a hybrid way is in process. And a lot of discussion and a lot of dialogues are needed. So I think so that this is it, and these are the wealth of knowledge. And according to my time, I have 15 seconds left, and I thank you so much. And I give the floor to for the colleagues.
Agnes, thank you very much. Fantastic timing. The stopwatch policy, wonderful. No, really wonderful, really good. And wonderfully significant, comprehensive presentation you've got there. I mean, really, so many resources. And obviously, I think a great amount of work you've put in there. And I think surely colleagues will be able to look at those resources and digest them as they can afterwards. Okay, we've got the next question for questions. As I'm looking here okay, we do have a question here then. Wonderful. So let's go straight in with a question. So Hanipa asked the question, Agnes. I think you talked in your presentation about the hybrid form of education. Can you explain more what you mean by the hybrid form of education, Agnes?
Yes, and if I may, I will share my screen. So
yeah, fantastic. Go ahead.
This thing here, let me see. So I can let me see. So I just go up because I want to show you this picture. Actually, I zoom in here, the picture. So here on the in this picture, we see the equality and versus equity. And what I'm talking about hybrid way is that at the moment, if you look at the first picture is the treating people equally, that providing the same benches of support, regardless the different sizes of the people or the different life experiences of the people. On the second picture, we saw that people, according to their circumstances, are supported with different levels of benches in order to see the sport event. And this is really said, as it is in English, they are treated equitably. And what is a wonderful thing here is that at the moment in Europe, at least, we are at this stage because we are providing support provision for certain groups. But what is the future is that we really think about not the benches, but the fence that are creating barriers for access and inclusion. And how I call the hybrid model is that at the moment, the third picture, when we remove the fence, which was actually the systematic barrier, is I would say, the universal design approach in education. But at the moment, not every higher education settings are there at this universal design approach. So as also not Hungary. So I say that we still need to keep this kind of support ways with how is it symbolizes with the benches, But in the meantime, we should seek for universal design approach. And why I'm saying it's hybrid, because for a while we will keep both structures. We will keep the structures that we're providing additional support, but on the same way, we also encourage stakeholders, teachers, and academics to really design their spaces from the beginning as inclusive as possible, and not only focusing on specific target groups, but really focusing on the whole classroom experience. So that's it, and I hope that I was clear enough, but please go ahead if there is something not clear.